Welcome to Confidence Bytes. Start your week the confident way with short, juicy confidence takeaways brought to you by Stuart Elliott from Double C Coaching. Okay, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Confidence Bytes. My name's Stuart and today I'm honoured to be joined by Maggie Georgopoulos. Maggie, hello, welcome and thank you for being here. And before you say anything else, please don't crucify me if I made a mistake with the pronunciation of your name.
No, you actually got it right, and I'm, feeling really honoured to actually be a part of this. So thank you very much for talking to me.
So I can see in the background you've got some rain on the windows, and your voice is from Australia. So where are you now?
I'm sitting in my flat in Glasgow.
Uh-huh.
And as my accent dictates, I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia, but I'm here with my partner, Tom, who's originally from the Highlands. And unfortunately for us today, Glasgow's decided to put on its finest rainy weather.
Well, it keeps it green.
It's a bit of a shame because it's been very sunny for the last couple of months.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, it keeps it green, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and it keeps it clean and beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, let me just read out your bio because you've got quite an interesting bio. It's actually on the computer, so I can see it on the screen. I'm clever. So, Maggie is the leading global authority on career development for women in male-dominated industries and author of the upcoming book, Up the Ladder in a Skirt, which is hailed as the book for women in challenging roles globally. A mechanical engineer who climbed to the top of the leadership ladder by age 32, Maggie was the executive chairman of a large agricultural company responsible for the 75% increase in the retention of staff through career development pathways. Maggie is a sought-after consultant in oil and gas, agriculture, manufacturing and automotive industries. And having achieved these goals, such as being the youngest member of the Plastics Pioneers Education Initiative, which went into companies such as Monsanto and Nilex, she has directly impacted the career choices and progress of over 10,000 women in over 32 countries around the world. With a deep commitment to diversity and well-being, she is an ambassador for sustainable career development for women the world over. And that's pretty impressive, that is. It's pretty impressive. So well done, congratulations for that.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's difficult not to go, that's not me.
Well, it's on paper, it's on video, so it may well
it
be.
Is me.
It is you. So, you've got this interesting book. The title is very catchy. When will we be able to pick the book up?
According to my publisher, it'll be printed at the start of November, which I'm really, really excited about.
Uh-huh.
And between now and then, you'll be able to get a downloadable version of it on my website, which the page for that. You can pre-purchase it, and the Kindle edition of it should come out between now and November as well.
Okay, so it's going to be coming soon.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to that. It sounds like an interesting book. The title is very catchy.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it as well. It's been an interesting journey for me writing the book, let alone it coming out. So I suppose with all the effort and all the hurdles that I've had to go through and the blocks I've had to deal with in order to get it out, I really want to see it in print as well, just to say, yes, I did do it.
You did do it, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure you're going to feel even more excited when it comes out. And as I say, you've had a wonderful career. You started off in the corporate world and now you work for yourself. So what made you switch? Because it's quite a big change, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not really as simple as a just decision to switch, because in all honesty, if it fit my lifestyle, I'd probably still work in corporate, which is, I suppose, part of the reason why my passion is to work with businesses and corporates in order to help them retain their female talent. But I got to the position of executive chairman of the board of a large agricultural company in Australia, which you read out in my bio. And I took 12 months off in order to lead up a large not-for-profit, which is called Junior Chamber International. It's in over 100 countries around the world. And as part of that, I travelled around Australia and around the world. I went into communities, helped young people in their 20s and 30s to organise projects to help grow communities, to help sustain communities. I got to see communities in countries like Bangladesh, where, you know, they were working with, you know, the poorer communities to help, you know, get them, you know, step out of poverty, to help empower young girls and women to step into education. And when I came to the point that it was time to go back to being in my corporate role, I found it really difficult to step back in.
I don't know what happened.
Okay. So where do you want me to start from?
Start from, you know, you fill in the resume in, I think would be better.
Yeah. Okay. So you know, I got to the stage where I had to put my CV together, and I was really struggling with it. And I realized that it wasn't, what had happened is, even though I was extremely successful at what I did, you know, I, as I said, executive chairman of the board, all male board. I won a scholarship to the Australian Company Directors course. I sat on a government advisory committee and 2 other advisory boards, but it wasn't my success.
Mm-hmm.
I'd done what everyone had said, you know, this is what you should do. You know, when you're at school and they go, oh, you're really good at that, you should do this. So I just did it. And I did really well at it, so I continued doing it, and I continued to do really well at it. But what I realised from having taken the year off and working in communities and working with projects to help empower people, and in particular empower young people and empower women and girls, I realised that what I really wanted to do wasn't what I was doing. So I decided to basically throw it all in, and I sold up my house and hopped on an aeroplane. Mm-hmm. And initially what I did is, for about the first 12 months, I travelled. I volunteered in various places while I was travelling. I also just visited places. So I did things like hike the Inca Trail and, you know, just the sort of stuff you go out and do. And then I kind of, you know, thought about what I could do. So I wanted to continue travelling, and I wanted to continue working in communities that had access, didn't have access to the sort of things we have access to in Australia and the UK. So I started picking up short-term contracts. So I had the business shell sitting there, so I decided to use it. So I'd do contracts either in teaching or in human resources, or you know, contract building, process line specialisation. So in the things that I had my qualifications and experience in. And in between those, I would do things like I would volunteer in orphanages in South Korea or out in Africa. I worked with, you know, women in communities in Tanzania to help them build up micro businesses. And I just travelled around and did those sort of things. And I did that for most of the last 11 years. Okay. So I kind of flipped short-term contracts with volunteering. And then I met my partner.
So how did you find the courage to do all these things on your own? I mean, that's...
It's a funny thing, because people talk about it being courage, and to me it was just something that, you know, seemed really exciting, so why not? And it's a modern world. We've got the access to it. It's hopping on an aeroplane and you know, just heading off somewhere. And I didn't see myself as being on my own. I, you know, felt that whenever I arrived somewhere, I usually landed into a community of something, you know, people I work with. One of the other advantages I had in many places, not all of them, because some of the more obscure places, the contacts weren't there, but because I've been involved with JCI, and as I said, they were in over 106 countries around the world, I had contacts in most countries when I landed. So even if I hadn't met the people, there was somebody there that I could,
you could talk to. Yeah.
And go, hey, I'm arriving in Dar es Salaam. Would you show me around? It'd be nice to actually, you know, get the local side of things before I head off. You know,
but you know, even though you say you don't see it as courage, it is quite a courageous thing, and it does take a lot of confidence to trust that these people are going to be there for you. I mean, I can remember when I first came to China, a similar situation. I was met at the airport at Guangzhou by a guy I've never seen before, who's got my ticket to my final destination. There's this guy there, he can't speak a word of English. He's got a little sign saying, Mr. Elliott. So come, we go, you know. And you just trust and you just believe it's going to happen, and it does.
Yeah, and I suppose that there is a level of confidence in it because I just believe or trusted implicitly that it'd be okay. And that's not to say that it's been perfect.
No,
I've
no.
had moments in my travels where it's been an absolute disaster, and I've just sat there and gone, what am I doing?
But that's part
At
of the
the end of
job,
the
isn't it?
day, all of the great things that have come out of what I've done have been worth doing it, which is,
Hmm.
I think, where I get the confidence to just step off and go, do you know what? It will
Hmm.
be okay.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's that belief that it will be
yeah,
okay makes the difference, doesn't it?
yeah,
Because you're
yeah.
not thinking of the negative things. You're thinking of, okay, it's going to work. Somehow I'll find a way for it to work.
Well, and to me, it's much better to focus on the positive things. I mean, I
Hmm.
have my moments. I'm human,
We
and
all
I'll
do,
sit,
yeah.
oh my God, I could have been, you know, XYZ if I hadn't have gone and done. But by the same token, I wouldn't have the experiences that I have. I wouldn't be the person that I have.
No.
And I would be where I am right now. So I
Hmm.
wouldn't undo any of what I've done. But,
Hmm.
that doesn't mean I don't have my moments where I go,
No, I'm in the same situation. I lived in Africa for 18 years, and now I'm in China. I've been for 13 years. It's not every day perfect. There's many things that crop up, but it helps you to grow. And, to
yeah,
be honest with you, if you'd have stayed back where you were, you'd have had your moments as well.
yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are, does it? The moments will come. It's how you feel about yourself and are able to just handle whatever comes at you, or have the belief you can handle it. That is the important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I had those moments when I was working in my career in Australia. Like,
Hmm.
I wake up some mornings and go, I can't believe I'm actually, the executive chairman of the board. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm a kid.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose at 32 you are and you aren't, but do you know what? In a lot of ways, I still was. I was still
Hmm.
relatively wet behind the ears. And there were days when I was doing the plastic pioneer stuff where I really was like, how have I managed to get here? Here I am, a little 30-something-year-old woman
Hmm.
in a team of men, and most of them are like in their 50s and 60s. They've got 30, 40 years experience within these industries, and there's me.
Hmm.
So there are days where you sit there and go, how did I get here and who am I to be here? But at the end of the
Sometimes it's
day,
a dream, isn't it? You have to pinch yourself.
yeah,
Is it real?
yeah. At the end of the day, to me, the confidence comes from the belief that, do you know what? It's okay. If I
Hmm.
wasn't supposed to be here, I wouldn't be here.
Hmm.
So I make the most of being here and see where it goes.
Hmm. So, what advice would you give to women who, maybe they're feeling that they're lost in their life, that the job's taking up too much of the time, it's not giving them the satisfaction that they expected it to? What advice would you give to them?
The first advice I always give is to go straight to back to basics. Who are
Hmm.
you?
Hmm.
And when I say who are you, it's not hi, I'm Maggie, I'm a female, I'm
No.
approximately 5'10", all that sort of stuff. No, it's like who are you deep down inside?
Hmm.
Think about things that make you happy. Why do these things make you happy?
Hmm.
What can you do in order to have this as the key part of your life?
Hmm.
I look at it from the perspective of what was going on when I was trying to decide what to do all those years ago. What I realized is I'm very good at leadership stuff, but what wasn't making me happy was being in a corporate, bashing my head against a wall on a different basis,
Hmm.
effectively, and not really helping others. I realized that what really, really made me happy was being able to go out there and make a difference.
Hmm.
So I focused on that and looked for what I could do in order to make that happen. And it's the same with, careers, because quite often your career might make you happy. It's just the workplace you're in that might be wrong. Or
Hmm.
the work might be great, but the career choice you've suddenly made may not be right, which
Hmm.
means that it might be a question of seeing whether or not you can talk to your company about changing your path within the company, or you're looking at potentially stepping out and doing something else.
Yeah, that
But
reminds
that
me.
out is that here.
Mhm. That reminds me of a philosophy of Sir Richard Branson, Virgin, from Virgin. Before if he has a problem with any staff member, the first thing he decides is, are they in the right position
Yeah,
for their skill set? And it
yeah,
could be that they've got this wonderful skill set, but it's not being utilized. So you put them in a different position, and boom, everything comes to light again. So I think that's a wonderful thing to actually do.
No, it is. And it's a critical error that we make across the board, whether it's, volunteer organisations, businesses. Quite often in our day-to-day life, we spend so much time trying to conform to an ideal that somebody else has given us that we often forget that each individual person's different, and it's okay to be different, and it's okay to play to your strengths. And at times, not wanting to go down the path of bashing the education system, but one of the fundamental issues that I have with the education system is we don't allow children to move into their strengths. We spend so much time focusing on what they don't do well, and so little time focusing on what they do well, that when we become adults, our mindset's such that, it's all about what we're not doing well and what we
focused on the negative, isn't it?
What we do really well.
Yeah. And that brings back, the memories of you get your exercise book back. It's got all these red lines in it. It's got these red crosses in it. There's nothing good. And you look at it and you put so much effort into it and you feel down because, it didn't work. Yeah. And this is the attitude we take into adult life, isn't it? That we're always looking on negatives. I mean, I always say to people, can you tell me 100 good things about yourself? 10, maybe 15, maybe 20, but that's about it. That's finished. If I ask them for 100 bad things, no problem. They just roll off the tongue.
We're awfully good at figuring out what we don't do well.
This is instilled into us in the education at a young age, and that's really a terrible thing in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not just from that. We get the message from our parents, from our peers, from everything. It comes from the way people are rewarded. So you've got kids that are rewarded for being really, really active and sporty, and then you got other kids who may be academic and they're not necessarily getting rewarded in the same way. So once again, they're getting this picture meeting the right thing. Fortunately, that has changed a lot these days. It's not quite as black and white as it was back then.
No, but it's still got a long way to go.
It does. And, it's just building that up, and it's trying to shift that mindset as adults, because we get into adulthood and once again we focus on our weaknesses. I need to improve my time management, or I need to improve the way I communicate with people. What I actually need to do is own the fact that I communicate with people in a certain way because that's my personality, or my time management is a certain way because that's my personality, and get myself to be a part of a team where I can play to my strengths, and somebody else as part of that team will help, keep the other things in line, because their strength is time management or their strength is communication. So it's a matter of building that team and working. And if you can get yourself into that and learn how to communicate in your language so that other people can then, hear and understand what it is that you're saying, we tend to do so much better, and we tend to feel so much more confident within ourselves.
Yeah, and the key word there is the strengths, isn't it? Because most people don't focus on strengths; they focus on weaknesses.
Yep.
As we've just spoken about, that's a really bad thing. And there's always room for improvement. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but there are some things that we're not suited to do. For instance, I'm very good at starting things, but I'm not a very good finisher. So I need to get someone to help me, to finish. That I can get the ideas, I can get the projects moving, but bring them to completion, I get bored.
Yeah.
So I need help there.
And that comes back to that personality thing. And I mean, if you want to use a really key example on that, Richard Branson, who you spoke about earlier, is a prime example of that sort of person. On which type of personality thing or whatever you want to use. Roger Hamilton talks about dynamos, and Richard Branson is one. He's a starter. He's an ideas man. He's the sort of person that builds great teams around him in order to make things happen, and then moves on to the next idea, because he's never going to complete it. That's what he's good at.
He's got to build the team, hasn't he? Yeah.
But look at what Richard Branson has. There is not a person in the world that would say that man is a failure. Right? Yet if he had stayed in a box that said that he had to complete every project that he started, he would be a failure.
Yeah.
Right? So that in itself is, I think, is a very good example of how it works. You wouldn't put Branson and Warren Buffett are two very different personalities, yet they're both extremely successful men. And the same, look at women. Look at Hillary Clinton versus the Michelle Obama. They're both, extremely strong women, both extremely powerful, both have very different personalities and ways of going around doing things, but make either one any less successful than the other.
No. And again, it's that understanding your strengths and recognizing and getting the help you need to bolster the parts which you're not so good at. I won't use the word weaknesses because I don't see them as weaknesses either, but that's just not suited to you, shall we say.
Yeah. And it's much better to play to our strengths.
It is.
You end up feeling much more satisfied, and you gain that confidence that helps you then move forward, And I suppose that comes back to my mum's description of me as a ledge jumper. I'll step off a ledge and trust that I'm going to land safely. Part of that comes from the fact that, when I've played to my strengths, things have worked. And that's the way I find it.
And when it works, it gives you confidence to carry on and to do something more and to do something more.
Do it again.
and if you look back on success, then that builds confidence, doesn't it? Because if you look back on failure, you say, well, I'm no use. But if you look back on success, and it doesn't matter how big the success is, it can be a small success. It could be you set your alarm to get up at 5 o'clock this morning because you had something to do and you got up and you did it. That's a success. So the more you focus on that, then the more you become stronger and you become more inclined to do that. So it's a wonderful philosophy.
It is. I like it. And I live by it.
So, I have another question that I wrote down here, and it's quite an interesting question. What would you say, because you told me you're in a mastermind group, and some of the members were saying to you, you need to become more feminine or become something along those lines. What would you say to people, who think that women have to be all soft and fluffy? And I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, because, as you mentioned, there are different personalities. What would you say? It's about owning yourself, about being authentic, isn't it?
Yep. What I would say to that is you need to understand that all of us have masculine and feminine in us, and particularly, if you look at the Eastern philosophies and your yin and yang, they talk about that. Now, some of us tend to, the majority of females have, an outward appearance of what is feminine qualities, but some of us have an outward appearance of what are very masculine qualities. And if you look into things like your Myers-Briggs and the personalities on that, 75% of females have the feeling logic, which means that they look at things from the perspective of logic based in people and things that affect people. Right? That doesn't mean that they're touchy-feely cuddly. It just means that they look at their logic that way. Only 25% of women have the thinking logic, which tends to be associated more with men, and that's that, looking at things more from the perspective of logic based in things. So, for example, if I was to look at the breakdown of something in a business that was going to affect the overall run of the business and the people, I would often forget to think about because I would look at it in logic in terms of cash flow in the business and how that all works. And I would often come across as being very masculine in my approach because I can be quite abrupt in what I say. I can often forget about how people might feel. And that's not to say that I don't think about that anymore, because I've stepped out and done a lot more community-based stuff. I now think that way a little bit more, but it's not a natural preference. So if I'm under pressure or stress, I will default to, people that are just part of the resources. Their feelings aren't important.
Yeah.
And it's seen as a very masculine quality. And I've had people at, stages might say, oh, you're just one of the boys, or you behave like a bloke, or stuff like that. And it's like, I'm not stepping into a masculine energy in order to be like the men. I'm stepping into my energy, and it just happens to have a slightly stronger element of masculine in it as society sees it than what is considered to be the norm for a female. Having said that, I always wear dresses because that's something that I like. So I always have an outward appearance of being very feminine. But it is actually quite difficult, because when you look at, the female role models that are out there, so you look at the way that they constantly look at us and go, oh my God, look at what she's wearing, or, oh no, she's being really masculine, she needs to be softer and more feminine. You know what? Some women just aren't soft and fluffy. That's the nature of things. And there are some men out there that are extremely soft and fluffy. I mean, I would never at any stage say that my partner is not 100% man, but in all honesty, he has more of the feminine outward appearances than I do, So, and that's just, because of natural preferences. It's got nothing to do with our gender. It's to do with what happens up here.
Yeah, and quite often as people, because of society and because of many things, we don't take the time to look past the appearance.
No.
And that becomes a big problem. You look at somebody who's in a suit, you think this, you don't see past it. This could be the biggest crook in the world. But because he's got a suit on, you get that impression that he's honest and trustworthy straight away. And well, I mean, generally speaking.
But yeah, it is, and it does come down to that. We have stereotypically put women into these role models of you're the carer, you're the more caring, and to be honest, women as a collective do tend to lead differently than men do. They tend to use a far more collaborative style, and once again, because of the stereotypes around leadership, we suddenly see that as not being a strength. We see that as being that naughty word, a weakness. And it's not. It is a different style of leading. And once again, there are men out there that do the collaborative really well, and there are women out there that do the competitive really well. And what we need to do is try to open up our minds to the fact that it's not just about the gender, it's about our personality types, our preferences, how we prefer to do things, and we need to open up, businesses and community organisations and things so that they're more diverse in the types of personalities you've got on your boards or running your organisations. And that could still mean an all-female or an all-male management team or senior leadership team, but you want diversity in that team. You want people that have each of the elements that help balance it out and make it work even better.
So do you think when people just talk about diversity, they just and thinking is more about more women or more gender, equal gender, not gender, race and everything else? Do you think it should be more about a diversity of personalities, so we've got the balance of personalities rather than the stereotypes?
Yeah, I honestly believe it needs to be more about personalities, and it's an interesting thing I come up against, because quite often when I'm talking to, in particular, senior males within business, and I start talking about diversity, their backs kind of go up and they're like that, oh, well, here comes this more women on boards thing, blah, 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 and I'm like, stop. Yes, I would like to see more women on boards, and I would like to see more women on boards because I believe that there are so many women out there that could do so much to help, and they're not being. However, when I'm talking about diversity on boards, I'm talking about a diversity of personalities, and I think it's something that we need to look at. Yes, within that, you will end up with that, that mix of women and races and cultures and all the rest of it, and that will, grow it even further because, where we grow up and the social influences we have on us affect our personalities as well. But having that more diverse personality makeup within the actual, leadership team will make a huge difference to how the organisation is run, because for starters, you'll open up the lines of communication better because each of the personality types communicate differently. And quite often, I might be sitting there as someone who's quite, extroverted and bubbly and bouncy, and, an idea will fire out and I'll just throw it at someone and I bounce off and I expect them to be behind me and then realise that I've actually left them still sitting in their seats while I've run off type thing. My communication style is very different to somebody who's far more deliberate about what they do, who likes to see every step. And when I just fire a piece of information out and bounce off, they don't necessarily understand what I've just said because I haven't spoken their language. What I need to do is fire the piece of information off, stop, ask the question, what do you need to know in order to make this happen? they can then ask the questions about steps that they need. And rather than getting frustrated that, oh my God, they don't see it already, why can't they see it? I need to understand that not everybody can just see the big picture like I do. Some people need to have it coloured in order to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, and that understanding is very important because we all think in different ways, don't we? And this has got nothing to do with gender or race or anything. It's just the way we are as people. You know, similarly with language. Some people can think in pictures. Some people need to think in sounds, and some people need to think in feelings. There's so many different ways we do that, and we have to understand that when we're communicating with people.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the diversity should be focused on, and not. I mean, when I lived in South Africa, just after Nelson Mandela came into power, there was this big thing on women and race. And they were just promoting people left, right, and center. And half the people had no skills to be where they were put, and they were totally out of their depth. But because they fit the picture of diversity that was needed, they were being really put under unfair pressure, and not every one of them reacted very well to it. And I think that is wrong. I think there needs to be a much wider and deeper understanding of what diversity means.
Yeah, and we really need to get a balance in it, because it is something that's going to take time, and there will be times where it will appear that we're being unfair, because on the surface it'll appear that the board or the team or whatever that's being put together is not very diverse, because they will coincidentally be, you know, all white females or all black males or all whatever, but that's not what it's about. It'll be that there is this really good rounding of personalities so that they can actually work together from, you know, the big picture all the way through to the finest detail, which means that a project can get started and finished, not just started and then kind of stressfully dragged across the finish line, because the person who starts it is not the sort of person that finishes it. I mean, without someone...
So often doesn't, that's why I'm laughing, because it does happen so often.
It's because we tend to fill teams with people that are like us. And I'm not saying as in, you know, gender or race or culture. I'm talking about personality without even thinking about it. When we're talking to people and we have people who have the same sort of preferences as we do, we suddenly feel more comfortable with them. We feel like we're speaking the same language. We feel like they get us, and we want to work with that. And what we fail to understand is, yes, it'd be great to work with that, but if I've got a complete team of me's, oh God, that'd be a disaster.
It's very limiting, because there's nobody thinking outside of your tunnel, for want of a better word, you know. So we need that, you know, to be explored. I'm just looking at the time here. We are getting a little bit late in the day, but you've been giving us some great information. So I don't mind running a few seconds longer, but I just want to make sure that, you know, you said you had an offer, something to give to the listeners and to the viewers. I wanted to give you time to be able to mention that, and you know.
Yep. I have an online course that fits to my book, Up the Ladder in a Skirt. And basically it looks at the initial rungs of developing leadership and building your own success. It's effectively a 6-module course, but you can do it in your own time, and it will be going live online within the next month. So people can sign up for it, and I would give them links, and then you can actually do it in your own time. So it takes you through some modules and exercises which take you through the basic run. So it's, you know, understanding yourself, understanding your personality type, understanding how you communicate and work in teams, you know, making sure that you're looking after your own health and well-being, and looking after your mental health. They're the 5 basic rungs, and then looking at the start of that 6th platform, which is stepping into leadership and what that actually, you know, looks like.
Okay, and could you just mention the how they can sign up? And I'll put the show notes out. I'll write it down in there with a link for people.
I have a link on my website, which is www.uptheladderinnerskirt.com, and I'll actually send that through to you so that you can put it up for people to see as well. And if you just go through that onto that, you'll be able to...
What is the link called?
Pardon? Up the Ladder in a Skirt.
No, that's the website, uptheladder.com. And
Yeah.
the link on it, you said, what's the link?
It'll land you onto the links to sign up for the course.
Okay, so it's very straightforward. People just go to
Straightforward.
hit the link, and then they can fill in the details, and they've got this wonderful free course. And I like the way the course starts, because if you don't start to know yourself and you don't understand yourself, how can you ever expect to understand anybody else? So it's a very vital point. And then the other point of the course I like as well is that looking after yourself. Because you're the number one person. If you don't look after yourself, how can you perform? How can you look after other people?
Yeah, and I think it's extremely important. And I've unfortunately learnt the hard way.
I think a lot of us learn the hard way sometimes.
So I would like to help others not necessarily have to go through the same things I did in order to get there.
Yeah, and I think you have been a great help. I think your wide view of the world, your knowledge, and your commitment to helping others, especially women, understand themselves and their position. That they don't have to be living a different world from themselves. I was trying to think of the words then. If they're authentic, they can be themselves, and they can understand, how to work with other people and to get the respect. It's going to be much better for themselves, but everybody else as well.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really, really a wonderful thing. And, I'm so glad that we came across each other, because you've got so much more. We don't have time to go now. We could speak for hours and hours. It's been wonderful having you here.
No, it's been great speaking with you, and thank you very much again for the opportunity. It's been awesome.
Do you have a closing thought to pass on to the listeners and the viewers?
I think at the end of the day, it is really, really important to be yourself, because you are going to be your most successful as yourself. And that includes, it's often difficult, but it includes being able to be honest about who you are and what that involves, whether that involves a mental health issue, the fact that you prefer to walk up to everyone and give them a big hug, or the fact that you prefer to stand a distance from people. As long as you own that and step into it, you're on the step of being successful.
Yeah. And that authenticity, there's a lot of words like diversity and authenticity, which are becoming buzzwords around the industries today, but they're not being taken at the real value, the real meaning.
Yeah. And real value is, it's all about you. You can't be anyone else but yourself.
No. You were designed by whoever to be you. So why should you try to be somebody else?
So at the end of the day, you're you, and you're wonderful, and what you have to contribute is just as valuable as what the next person does. Yeah,
and your contribution might be in a different angle or a different way, but it's still your contribution, and we need that. We need your contribution. So thank you once again, Maggie. It's been a wonderful, 40 minutes, half an hour or so. Maybe one day, very soon, we could make a second part if you would like that, because I think
that would be fabulous. Be careful inviting me to speak. I can speak for hours.
Well, so once again, if you want to hear more on it, to reserve a copy of the book, it's uptheladderinnerskirt.com.
Yeah. Okay.
And then get your course, and then hopefully they can enjoy reading about this book. This book sounds so wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much, Maggie. Let me just stop the recording. Confidence Bytes, your weekly confidence building show, was brought to you by Stuart Elliott from Double C Coaching. www.doubleccoaching.com. DOUBLECCOACHING.com. For regular confidence building tips, subscribe to this channel today, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Stuart C, capital S TUART, capital DOUBLE, capital C, at Stuart C.